My name is Lila Anderson, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that betrayal hurts the most when it comes from inside your own home. I married the love of my life, Daniel, with nothing but hope in my heart. He was kind, ambitious, and the type of man I believed I could build a beautiful future with. On the day I moved into his family's home, I thought I was walking into a new chapter full of blessings and love. But little did I know, someone in that very house had already decided to turn my happiness into misery. That someone was my sister-in-law, Olivia. At first, Olivia acted sweet. She smiled at me, hugged me in front of Daniel, and welcomed me as if I were really her sister. She called me family, and pretended to care. But behind those smiles, I began to sense something darker. Her eyes would narrow whenever Daniel complimented me. She would mock my cooking, my clothes, or the way I spoke. Small digs, small comments, things only I seemed to notice. I kept ignoring it. I told myself, maybe she just needs time to adjust. I wanted peace. I wanted to believe that family bonds mattered. But then, the whispers started. One evening, Daniel came home looking upset. When I asked what was wrong, he hesitated, then said quietly, "Olivia told me, you don't like helping out in the kitchen." My heart dropped. That very day, I had spent hours cooking with his mother. Why would Olivia say something so untrue? I brushed it off, thinking maybe it was just a misunderstanding. But it didn't stop there. A few days later, Daniel confronted me again. This time, his voice carried hurt. "Olivia told me you said I wasn't ambitious enough. That you think I'll never succeed." I froze. I would never say that. To me, Daniel was the hardest working man I had ever known. Why would I insult him like that? That's when it hit me. Olivia wasn't just making small remarks. She was deliberately planting lies, poisoning Daniel's mind against me, one rumor at a time. And it worked. Slowly, I saw the trust in Daniel's eyes fade. He doubted my words more often. He pulled away from me emotionally. His smiles grew fewer, his silences longer. And through it all, Olivia looked at me with that same fake sweet smile, as if daring me to expose her. But how could I? She was his sister. He trusted her because she had been part of his life forever. If I accused her without proof, I would only look paranoid, maybe even guilty. So, I swallowed my pain. I cried quietly at night, my pillow soaked with tears I never wanted Daniel to see. But deep inside, I made a promise to myself. I would not let Olivia destroy my marriage. I wasn't going to fight her with anger. No. I was going to be patient. I was going to outsmart her. From that day, I began keeping track. Every lie she told, every rumor she spread, I wrote it down. Dates, times, exact words. I started connecting the dots, seeing the pattern in her poison. She wasn't just jealous, she was strategic. Every rumor she spread was designed to weaken the bond between me and Daniel. Her ultimate goal became clear. She wanted to ruin my marriage completely. And for a while, I feared she would succeed. But then, I remembered who I was. I wasn't weak. I wasn't helpless. If she thought I would just stand by and let her destroy my life, she was wrong. I didn't know how yet, but one thing was certain. I would expose her. And when I did, she would regret ever underestimating me. Days turned into weeks, and Olivia's whispers only grew louder. She had a way of twisting the smallest situations into ugly stories. If I spent too long on my phone, she would tell Daniel I was hiding something. If I went to visit my parents, she'd imply that I was talking badly about his family. At first, Daniel tried to brush it off. But little by little, I saw the seed of doubt grow inside him. The cruelest part was that Olivia knew exactly what she was doing. She never said anything directly to me, never confronted me face to face. No, she always whispered in Daniel's ear, making herself look like the concerned sister, while painting me as the villain. And every time Daniel looked at me with suspicion in his eyes, I felt another crack forming in the foundation of our marriage. One night, I sat alone in our bedroom, staring at the ceiling. My heart ached, but my mind was sharp. If she wants war, I whispered to myself, then war is what she'll get. But I'll fight it my way. That's when I began my plan. I knew Daniel trusted Olivia's words more than mine right now. But if I could gather undeniable proof, something she couldn't deny, something he couldn't ignore, then the tables would turn. So, I started watching her more closely. Whenever she spoke to Daniel, I made sure to be nearby, pretending not to listen. Sometimes I'd catch her exaggerating something I said, other times outright inventing lies. The more she spoke, the more reckless she became. I even began recording some of her conversations when I could. At first, I felt guilty. After all, she was family. But then I'd remember the way Daniel's trust in me had eroded, the tears I cried at night, the humiliation of being accused of things I never did. And that guilt turned into determination. Then came the breaking point. One Sunday afternoon, the whole family gathered for dinner. I had cooked most of the meal myself, pouring my heart into every dish. Everyone seemed to enjoy it, except Olivia. In front of everyone, she laughed and said, "Daniel, I don't know how you survive this food every day. Lila just doesn't know how to cook, does she?" The table went silent. Daniel looked embarrassed. My cheeks burned with shame. I wanted to cry, but instead, I smiled politely and said nothing. That night, though, I broke down. Alone in my room, I finally let the tears fall. It wasn't just about the food. It was about every lie, every rumor, every attempt to make me look worthless. And for the first time, I admitted to myself, I hated her. But hate wasn't enough. I wanted justice. The very next day, I caught my first real break. Olivia was on the phone in the living room, speaking to one of her friends. She didn't know I was nearby. I heard her say, laughing, "Daniel is so gullible. He believes everything I tell him about Lila. It's almost too easy." My heart pounded. This was it. Proof. Quietly, I pulled out my phone and hit record. Her words, her laughter, it was all there. My hands shook as I realized what I had captured. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. But I knew one recording wouldn't be enough. Daniel's bond with his sister was strong. If I wanted to truly open his eyes, I needed more. I needed undeniable evidence, so clear that even he couldn't ignore it. So I became patient. I gathered more recordings. More proof. Each one showed the truth, that Olivia was lying, scheming, and manipulating. And with each piece of evidence I collected, I felt my strength returning. Olivia thought she was breaking me. But in reality, she was building the fire inside me. She was turning me into someone who would rise higher than her lies. I didn't know exactly how or when, but one thing was certain. The day was coming when I would expose her. And when that day came, Olivia wouldn't just lose Daniel's trust. She'd lose the entire family's respect forever. Weeks passed, and my recordings grew in number. Every time Olivia opened her mouth to gossip, I was ready. She had no idea I was collecting her poison, storing it like ammunition for the day I would finally strike back. But I also knew one thing. If I exposed her too soon, Daniel might defend her. He'd say I was exaggerating or twisting her words. No, timing was everything. I had to wait until the perfect moment, when the evidence would destroy her lies in one blow. In the meantime, I kept playing the part of the quiet, patient wife. I smiled at family dinners, I stayed polite when Olivia insulted me, and I pretended not to notice when Daniel's trust in me continued to fade. Inside, though, my resolve was iron. One evening, Daniel confronted me again. He looked tired, frustrated. "Lila," he said, "Olivia told me you were talking badly about my parents to your friends. Is that true?" I stared at him, stunned. "What? Of course not. Why would I ever disrespect your parents?" He sighed, rubbing his temples. "I don't know what to believe anymore." That sentence cut deeper than any knife. I don't know what to believe anymore. The man I loved, the man who had promised to stand by me, was slipping away because of his sister's venom. That night, as Daniel slept beside me, I stared at him and whispered, "You'll know the truth soon. I promise." And fate delivered me the perfect opportunity sooner than I expected. A month later, Daniel's parents hosted a big family gathering. Relatives from out of town came. The house was full of laughter, chatter, and the clinking of glasses. I wore my best dress and plastered a smile on my face, even though my heart was heavy. Olivia, of course, was in her element. She thrived in crowds. More ears to whisper into, more people to charm. During dinner, I noticed her lean toward Aunt Clara, one of Daniel's closest relatives. I quietly moved closer, pretending to pour myself another drink. And then I heard it. "She tries so hard, but you know Lila just isn't right for Daniel," Olivia said softly, with fake concern dripping from every word. "She doesn't respect this family. Honestly, I worry their marriage won't last." Aunt Clara gasped. "Really? I thought Lila was sweet." Olivia sighed dramatically. "Sweet on the surface, maybe. But you don't see what I see." That was it. That was the moment I had been waiting for. Because this time, I wasn't just recording her in secret. This time, I had quietly turned on the speaker mode on my phone, broadcasting her voice loud enough for the table around us to hear. Within seconds, the conversation at the dinner table went silent. Heads turned. And there was Olivia, still whispering lies, completely unaware that half the room was listening. When she finally noticed the silence, she froze. Her face turned pale as she realized everyone had heard her words. I calmly walked over, placed my phone on the table, and pressed play. The recording of her earlier laughter. "Daniel is so gullible. He believes everything I tell him about Lila," echoed through the room. Gasps filled the air. Daniel's face went white. His hands clenched into fists. Olivia's eyes darted around, searching for an escape. I didn't mean it like that," she stammered. "It was just a joke." But no one was buying it. Aunt Clara shook her head in disgust. Daniel's mother frowned deeply. And Daniel looked at his sister like she was a stranger. "Olivia," he said, his voice trembling with rage. "How could you?" She opened her mouth to defend herself, but I wasn't done. I pulled out my phone and showed him the folder of recordings I had saved. One after another, I played them. The lies, the manipulations, the cruel words she had spoken behind my back. Every single one of them, undeniable and clear. By the time I was finished, Olivia was shaking. Her mask had completely fallen. The room that once adored her was now filled with cold, judging stares. And then Daniel turned to me. His eyes were wet with shame. "Lila, I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you." I held back tears, keeping my voice steady. "Trust isn't something you give halfway, Daniel. You either believe in me or you don't." He lowered his head, unable to meet my gaze. As for Olivia, she tried to laugh it off, to claim I had set her up. But no one believed her anymore. The family she once charmed had finally seen her true colors. For the first time in months, I felt victorious. Not just because I exposed her, but because I had done it with patience, intelligence, and strength. Olivia thought she had broken me. But instead, I had risen stronger than ever. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Because exposing her lies was one thing. Making sure she never dared to cross me again, that was my next move. The family dinner ended in chaos that night. Olivia left the table trembling with rage. Her once perfect mask shattered in front of everyone. Relatives whispered among themselves, and Daniel's parents looked devastated. I should have felt relief, but inside, I knew it wasn't over. People like Olivia didn't just crawl away quietly. She would try to twist the story, spin it in her favor, and play the victim. And I was right. The very next morning, I woke up to messages from relatives. Olivia had already started calling people privately, crying about how I had humiliated her in front of everyone. She painted herself as the misunderstood sister, the one who only wanted the best for Daniel. I almost laughed at her desperation. Almost. But I knew if I let her control the narrative, all my work would go to waste. So, I decided to hit back harder. That afternoon, I printed out transcripts of Olivia's nastiest recordings, the ones where she mocked Daniel, belittled his parents, and bragged about how easily she could manipulate people. I mailed copies to every close family member, attaching a small note. "You deserve to know the truth, Lila." It was brutal. And it worked. Within days, Olivia's phone stopped ringing. The cousins who once adored her avoided her. The aunts who once praised her no longer invited her to gatherings. She had become the outsider, the very thing she had always accused me of being. But while the family was slowly turning against her, my marriage still felt fragile. Daniel was ashamed, yes. He apologized endlessly. But part of me wondered, how could he have doubted me so easily? How could he let his sister's lies poison our bond? One evening, as we sat on the couch, he reached for my hand. "Lila," he whispered, "I don't know how to make this right." I looked into his eyes, my voice calm but firm. "You can start by believing in me without proof. Love shouldn't need evidence." He nodded, tears brimming. "You're right. I let Olivia blind me. It won't happen again." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But a part of me wasn't ready to forgive so easily. Trust, once broken, doesn't mend overnight. Meanwhile, Olivia was crumbling. She stopped showing up at family dinners. When she did, she looked thinner, her smile forced, her eyes darting nervously as if everyone was against her. And they were. But still, something told me she wasn't done. My suspicion was confirmed a week later, when Daniel came home with a stormy look on his face. "Olivia called me," he said bitterly. "She told me you're enjoying turning the family against her." I smirked. "Did you believe her?" He shook his head. "Not anymore. But she's angry, Lila. Really angry. I think she wants to take this further." That's when I realized, Olivia wasn't just losing her reputation. She was losing her grip on control, and people like her, when cornered, become dangerous. So I prepared. I started documenting everything. Every message she sent, every word she said. I even asked a friend who worked in IT to help me trace her social media activity. I wasn't just going to defend myself this time. I was going to crush her entirely. The final blow came sooner than expected. A month later, Olivia tried one last, desperate move. She spread a rumor that I was cheating on Daniel. She whispered it to a few distant cousins, hoping it would reach him. But what she didn't know was that I had already set a trap. When she texted one of her friends about her plan, my IT friend intercepted it. Within hours, I had screenshots of her exact words. "If Daniel thinks Lila is unfaithful, maybe he'll finally see what kind of woman she really is." That was it. The nail in her coffin. I printed the screenshots and handed them to Daniel. His face went pale as he read them. He didn't just look angry, he looked disgusted. "I can't believe she's my sister," he whispered. This time, Daniel didn't hesitate. He called Olivia directly, put her on speaker, and demanded answers. She stammered, denied, cried, but when he read her own words back to her, the silence on the line was deafening. Finally, Daniel said coldly, "You're no longer welcome in my life. Or in my marriage. Don't contact us again." And just like that, Olivia was cut out. The relief that washed over me was overwhelming. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. But more than that, I felt powerful. Because I hadn't just survived Olivia's betrayal. I had destroyed her with her own lies. And as I stood in the quiet of our living room, Daniel's arms around me, I thought, she wanted to ruin me. Instead, she ruined herself. The silence after Olivia's final phone call was almost surreal. For so long, her presence had been a shadow over my marriage, poisoning moments that should have been happy, twisting words that should have been kind. And now, just like that, she was gone. But deep inside, I knew the scars she left behind wouldn't heal overnight. Daniel tried his best. He became more attentive, more protective, more loving. He stopped second-guessing me, stopped letting doubt creep in. Yet, even as he worked to rebuild my trust, I felt the weight of what had almost been destroyed. Sometimes, late at night, I'd stare at the ceiling and think, if I hadn't fought back, if I hadn't gathered proof, if I had stayed silent, would my marriage still exist? The thought chilled me. But then another thought came, stronger, sharper. I didn't just survive. I won. I decided that Olivia's betrayal would not define me. Instead, it would make me stronger. So, I threw myself into my career. I started taking on projects at work that I had once been too cautious to attempt. I networked, I pushed, I led. Within months, my boss noticed, and I was offered a promotion that doubled my responsibilities and my salary. Daniel beamed with pride, but for me, it wasn't about the money. It was about reclaiming power. About proving to myself and to everyone else that no rumor, no lie, no betrayal could hold me down. Meanwhile, Olivia was unraveling. Word reached us through distant relatives. She had lost a job. Apparently, her toxic behavior had followed her into the workplace, and with her reputation ruined in the family, no one wanted to vouch for her anymore. She had become exactly what she feared most: irrelevant. I should have felt pity, but I didn't. Instead, I felt something far more satisfying: justice. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset, Daniel joined me. He held my hand, his thumb brushing gently across my skin. "You saved us," he whispered. I smiled faintly. "No, Daniel. I saved myself. And because I refused to break, we're still here." His eyes filled with emotion. "I'll never doubt you again. I swear it." And for the first time, I truly believed him. But my story didn't just end with peace. It ended with victory. A few months later, Daniel and I hosted a family gathering at our home. For years, Olivia had dominated these events, always commanding the spotlight. But this time, she wasn't there. And the difference was palpable. People laughed freely. Conversations flowed easily. No tension, no whispers, no subtle digs. At one point, Daniel's mother pulled me aside. Tears glistened in her eyes as she said, "Lila, I owe you an apology. I believed Olivia's lies for too long. But now I see the truth. You've held this family together when it could have fallen apart." Her words struck deep. For years, I had been the outsider, the one Olivia painted as a threat. And now I was finally recognized for what I truly was: the woman who fought and won, for her marriage and her dignity. Later that night, as the family gathered around the table, Daniel raised a toast. "To Lila," he said firmly. "The strongest woman I know. The woman who taught me that truth always wins." Everyone clapped, and I felt a warmth spread through me that no betrayal could ever touch. Because I had turned my pain into power. And Olivia. She faded into the background, forgotten by the very people she once manipulated. In the end, my story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about resilience. About standing tall when others try to knock you down. About refusing to be silenced. And as I looked around the table at the smiling faces of the family that once doubted me, I knew one thing for certain. Olivia thought she had destroyed me. But all she really did was set me free. This was my story. If you've ever been betrayed but found the strength to rise above it, know that you're not alone. I'm Lila Anderson, and this is how I turned betrayal into revenge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true revenge stories.